Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. Israel's 21st century version of the Trojan horse tactic has changed modern warfare forever. Contrary to the earlier speculation that Israel had pulled off some kind of a high-tech hack of pager devices for the explosions, the truth is a lot more sobering. What Israel has actually managed to pull off is to infiltrate the supply chain of the electronic gadgets like pagers and walkie-talkies, booby-trap them with explosives before they were eventually sold, in this case, to the Hezbollah about 5 months ago. So with these thousands of explosions across Lebanon, in which dozens of people have been killed and thousands of people have been injured, what Israel has managed to do is to gain a tactical advantage. It has displayed its technological prowess and also its stupendous intelligence capabilities. But what it has also done is to let the genie out of the bottle. There is no guarantee that the Trojan horse tactic of booby-trapping common everyday gadgets like phones, laptops and other devices will not be tried and deployed by other actors in other theatres of war. Consider this: the United States and China do not see eye to eye on many issues, but they are big-time trading partners. At this moment, the United States and China are building up their muscle for a war in the Asia-Pacific. How suspicious would they be of the electronic gadgets that they import from the other's territory? Israel's exploding pagers and walkie-talkies may have put the scriptwriters of a James Bond movie to shame, but what they may have also inadvertently done is to end globalization as we know it. Take a look at this report. At 3:30 p.m. local time in Lebanon, on the 17th of September, wave after wave of pager devices exploded in supermarkets, homes and even in cars while they were being driven. Within minutes, there was complete pandemonium as the injured were rushed to the hospitals and people across Lebanon came to grips with what had happened. At least 12 people had been killed, including a child, and more than 3,000 others had sustained grievous injuries. But this was just the first wave of explosions. In less than 24 hours, on the 18th of September, the handheld walkie-talkie devices began exploding across Lebanon. And the death toll this time round was even worse. At least 20 people are said to have been killed and more than 450 others were injured. Terming the pager and walkie-talkie explosions as a terror attack, Hezbollah immediately blamed Israel for the wave of bombings. Tel Aviv has remained tight-lipped, but Yoav Gallant, the Israeli defense minister, said that Hezbollah will have to pay an increasing price.
Over the past several days, we have held a series of important discussions. This is a new phase of the war. It includes opportunities but also significant risks. Hezbollah feels that it is being persecuted and the sequence of military and defense actions will continue.
Taiwan-based Gold Apollo, the company from whom Hezbollah had ordered 5,000 pagers, said that it had not manufactured the exploding gadgets. Instead, it had licensed the product to a Hungary-based company called BAC. The CEO of the company, 49-year-old Cristiana Barsani Archidiacono, in her only public statement given to the media, said that she's just an intermediary and has since then not been seen in public. The Japanese-based manufacturers ICOM of the exploding walkie-talkies have claimed that the devices that exploded in Lebanon are unlikely to be manufactured at their facility.
I have the device that exploded in black and white printed here. The hologram sticker should be here. The fact that the sticker is not on here means we cannot determine if it's genuine.
Subsequent investigations have revealed that the batteries of the pagers and the walkie-talkies had been tampered with. A part of the battery of the pager and the walkie-talkie is said to have been replaced by anywhere from 5 to 20 grams of PETN, a powerful explosive in every single device. The injuries sustained by the patients indicate that the explosive batteries were lined by steel balls and other shrapnel by Israel to inflict maximum damage.
We saw young victims and we saw very old victims. And all just had the same type of wounds. They had puncture wounds on their faces, they had amputated limbs, They had open abdomens, intestines out, bowels out. Unfortunately, there were wounds that we couldn't explain. There were ruptured eyeballs, there were fractured mandibles, fractured bones out. So basically, it was the first time I ever see the wounds like that. I couldn't even classify some wounds or categorize some wounds.
On the 20th of September, Israel used its F-35 fighter jets to attack the southern suburb of Beirut, killing at least 39 people. According to the Israeli military, a top Hezbollah commander, Ibrahim Akhil, was killed in the attack. Hezbollah has been firing rockets into northern Israel ever since the 7th of October. Tel Aviv has responded with disproportionate force, targeting sites that it claims are rocket launch pads used by Hezbollah. Israel and Hezbollah fought a crippling war in 2006, where in a relentless campaign of 34 days of bombing, Israel devastated nearly half of Lebanon. And yet the war ended in a stalemate, as Israel failed to make progress on the ground. And with a wave of pager and walkie-talkie bombings, Tel Aviv has now opened a new phase in its Middle East war. The United States of America at this moment is actively involved in two wars. The Ukraine conflict by many experts is regarded as an American war by proxy, while Washington has backed Israel to the hilt in the carnage that it has effected on the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. And now, the United States has a new plan to win another war that it expects will break out in the Asia-Pacific. And the United States is planning full steam ahead for it. In the month of April earlier this year, the United States had stationed its mid-range Typhoon missile systems in the Philippines as part of the Balikatan live-fire military drills. But the military drills are long over, and the United States has now said that it has no plans of withdrawing its Typhoon missile systems from the Philippines. Instead, it is testing the feasibility of using its Typhoon missiles for any impending conflict in the region. And as expected, Beijing is fuming at the presence of the top-notch American missiles at its doorstep.
China is gravely concerned about relevant reports with regard to the deployment of the mid-range missile system in the Philippines by the United States of America. China has repeatedly and sternly stated its opposition. The practice is a serious reversal of history, poses a serious threat to the security of countries in the region, and aggravates geopolitical confrontation, and has aroused a high degree of vigilance and concern on countries in the region.
In the span of just the last decade, China has built up the biggest navy in the world. In fact, according to an assessment by the US Department of Defense, China now has an estimated 350 major combat vessels and submarines. In comparison, the United States is estimated to have just about 290 warships. But what has rung some serious alarm bells is the fact that the Chinese Navy isn't just getting bigger, but it is even getting better. Consider this. According to the simulated conflicts conducted by the Pentagon, the United States will end up losing any war that is fought in the Pacific with China. So the United States is playing catch-up with China in the Asia-Pacific. For almost about 2 decades now, the American foreign policy to contain China has yielded very little. A ground invasion of Taiwan by China would bring the United States of America in a direct war with Beijing. And when this is expected to happen is a matter of intense debate amongst American military strategists. In November 2022, the United States and Australia had inked an agreement to station a fleet of American B-52 nuclear bombers at the Royal Australian Air Force Base Amberley in Queensland. And now, in the latest plan, the United States is developing what are known as QUICKSINK weapons to sink Chinese warships. QUICKSINK, that is still under development by Boeing, as the name indicates, are relatively inexpensive weapons that the United States intends to deploy in very large numbers in the Asia-Pacific. QUICKSINK will be equipped with a low-cost GPS guidance kit and a seeker that can track moving objects. In the event of a naval war with China, the American plan is to use its long-range anti-ship missiles, such as the SM-6 missiles, to damage the Chinese warships and its radars, and then to bombard the Chinese warships with the low-cost QUICKSINK weapons. To this end, the United States in the next 5 years intends to deploy nearly about 800 SM-6 missiles, along with several thousand Tomahawk missiles and hundreds of thousands of JDAMs. Logistics is often the pivot around which the results of a war revolve. And the question is this: can the American military-industrial complex now match the efficiency of the Chinese military manufacturers, who in the last decade have outpaced their American competitors? Vyacheslav Volodin, a close ally of the Russian President Vladimir Putin, has issued a stern warning to the Western nations on the 19th of September. In a message titled "For Those Who Didn't Get It the First Time," an apparent reference to a similar warning by Vladimir Putin last week, the Speaker of the lower house of the Russian Parliament and a member of Putin's Security Council has threatened nothing less than a nuclear war in the event of Western governments giving the green signal to Ukraine to use long-range weapons to strike targets inside Russia. Elaborating on his threat, Volodin said that it would take Russia's RS-28 Sarmat intercontinental ballistic missile, that is known in the West as the Satan II missile, just 3 minutes and 20 seconds to strike Strasbourg, which is the seat of the European Parliament. Our next report gets you the details.
A nuclear war is on the cards if Putin's trusted lieutenant Vyacheslav Volodin is to be believed. The European Parliament on Thursday adopted a non-binding resolution in which it asked EU countries to immediately lift restrictions on the use of Western weapon systems delivered to Ukraine against legitimate military targets on Russian territory. The resolution was adopted after 425 votes were cast in its favor, 131 against, and with 63 abstentions. Volodin's warning came in response to the adoption of the resolution. Putin had also warned last week that the West would be directly fighting Russia if it let Ukraine fire the long-range missiles onto Russian territory. The Russia-Ukraine war has brought the West and Russia on the verge of a nuclear Armageddon, a situation not witnessed since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, when the two Cold War superpowers came closest to international nuclear war. Is Russia's RS-28 Sarmat intercontinental ballistic missile, which the West had dubbed as Satan II, capable of unleashing such mayhem? The development of Sarmat missile was first announced by Putin in 2018. After Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Putin had declared in April 2022 that Russia had successfully tested the Sarmat intercontinental ballistic missile, further adding that the weapon capable of carrying nuclear charges will make Kremlin's enemies think twice. The missile officially entered combat service in 2023. The Sarmat intercontinental ballistic missile measures approximately 116 feet in length, weighs 220 tons, and carries up to 15 light nuclear warheads at once. With its ability to reach speeds in excess of 12,000 miles per hour, it could potentially reach the farthest spots in Ukraine within 3 minutes. The Sarmat Super Heavy ICBM is designed to elude anti-missile defense systems with a short initial boost phase, giving enemy surveillance systems a tiny window to track. All of its components are manufactured domestically, meaning Russia is not dependent on foreign partners for its production. Russian Defense Ministry considers the missile to be Moscow's response to the US prompt global strike system. The outgoing head of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, said this week that despite declarations of many red lines before, Russia has not escalated conflict with the West, even when they were crossed. It's a dangerous, provocative comment at a time fraught with conflict, tension, and the very real possibility of a nuclear confrontation.
Pyongyang claims to have successfully tested 2 types of tactical ballistic missiles on the 18th of September, including one with a super-large conventional warhead and an improved cruise missile. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, who oversaw the tests, claimed that the tests were a response to the grave threat posed by the outside forces to North Korea's security. Last week, in an unprecedented move, Pyongyang had offered a glimpse into its nuclear program by releasing still photographs that showed Kim Jong-un visiting a North Korean uranium enrichment facility. South Korean military and a number of analysts are of the opinion that North Korea is now testing weapons with a view to exporting them to Russia. Our next report gets you the details.
These are the still photographs released by the North Korean state news agency KCNA on the 19th of September, showcasing the successful testing of new tactical ballistic missiles, using super-large warheads and modified cruise missiles. Reportedly, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, who is shown watching the missile tests and holding a rifle, stressed the need to bolster up the nuclear force and called for stronger conventional weapons as well. The tests involved Hwasong-4 11 Da 4.5 missiles. The short-range ballistic missiles, which are part of the Hwasong 11 missile family, mounted with a 4.5-ton super-large conventional warhead and with a range of 320 kilometers. The Hwasong-4 11 Da 4.5 missile was officially tested for the second time. Its first launch was announced on July 1st this year, but no photographs were released. This time, though, one of the photographs showed a projectile striking a target in a hillside area. On the same day, South Korea's military said that North Korea's latest missiles landed in a mountainous area in the North's northeast.
North Korea launched ballistic and cruise missiles yesterday, and the location of the missiles which landed is in a mountainous area in North Hamgyong province.
North Korea routinely test launches missiles to drop in the sea or on an uninhabited island. Colonel Lee, while underscoring the threat posed by such missile strikes, said that North Korea is not a normal country.
It is hard to say that North Korea is a normal country. Also, there was no damage on July 1st when a missile fell on a mountainous area, which is a big difference for us because we have to prepare for all those things. Whenever North Korea develops new weapons, it has continued to disclose them and promote them. With Kim Jong-un's accomplishments, they are also showing off their offensive weapons against South Korea, both internally and externally.
Though Pyongyang, bearing the brunt of major international sanctions over its weapons program, has denied the trade with Russia, military ties with Moscow have been bolstered. Last year, Kim Jong-un met Russian President Vladimir Putin in Russia's east. The gesture was reciprocated by Putin, who visited Pyongyang in June this year, and the two leaders signed a mutual defense agreement. Last week, Russia's top security official, Sergei Shoigu, was welcomed by Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang. They had a wide exchange of views on regional and international situations, and reached a satisfactory consensus on issues including more cooperation to defend mutual safety interests. Analysts suggest that Kim Jong-un is helping Russia in its invasion of Ukraine by supplying rockets and missiles, in return for economic and other military assistance from Moscow, a charge refuted by both Pyongyang and Moscow. But this relentless modernization by Pyongyang of its weapons arsenal to cope with what it calls US-led threats has definitely heightened tensions in the Korean peninsula.
In the first attack of its kind to have hit the Malian capital of Bamako in years, an Al-Qaeda-linked jihadist group targeted the military airport and the training facility of the Malian police early on Tuesday morning. The militant group Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal Muslimin claimed to have inflicted heavy human and material losses. The Malian military government, however, claims to have thwarted the terror attack, further adding that the situation is now under control. Our next report gets you the details.
The impoverished West African nation of Mali has been wrestling with insecurity since 2012. Al-Qaeda and Islamic State-linked groups, as well as self-declared defense forces and bandits, have racked Mali for over a decade. Accusing the government of failing to do enough to quell the insurgency, the military seized power in a coup in 2021. The capital city of Bamako, however, had largely avoided the wrath of Islamist insurgency up until Tuesday morning. Al-Qaeda-linked jihadist group Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal-Muslimin, considered to be one of the most active militant groups in the wider Sahel region, struck a military airport and a military training center in a special operation at dawn.
It all started at around 3:30 am. I was lying on my motorbike when I heard gunshots in the school. I wondered what was going on. We moved away from where the attack was taking place. The sounds of gunfire continued when suddenly we heard a bomb explode. At the same time, reinforcements arrived and ordered us to move away.
Due to the unrest, Bamako's Modibo Keita International Airport was temporarily shut down. The Security Ministry spoke of terrorist attacks against sensitive points of the capital, but claimed to have the situation under control. Noteworthy is the fact that the attack came on the 64th anniversary of the founding of Mali's gendarmerie. The Malian Army's Chief of Staff said on national television that the armed extremists who attacked the military training center have been neutralized. In addition to this, at least 15 suspects have reportedly been arrested.
This morning, there were some rather complex infiltration attempts at the police school here. And since the first shots were fired, we have been deploying the forces. So first of all, I really wanted to reassure the Malian people that they can go about their business freely. The situation has been taken into account by the Malian armed forces. The terrorists who infiltrated have been neutralized.
Under the leadership of junta leader Colonel Assimi Goïta, Mali broke a long-standing alliance with European partners and former colonial power France, and brought in Russia's Wagner Group to help fight the jihadists, but there is no sign of the insurgency ending. Even more embarrassing is the fact that the attack came merely days after junta leader Assimi Goïta had said that his army had considerably weakened armed terrorist groups. At a time when the military leaders have pledged to regain control of the entire country, the rare attack in capital Bamako has put a big question mark to such boasts.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World at War. And if you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, please feel free to do so on the ID that you're seeing on your screens. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.